So for this last version of the minor blues, basically what I've done is taken the same set of changes and turnarounds that I used in the third pass, more or less, but now almost everything is dominant, which means we have some options in terms of tension and release for almost all the chords now. And again, it's dense because most of these changes are occurring for 2 beats, but pretty logical. It generally is either fourths or chromatic harmony to move away from and resolve back to a change. So the whole progression starts on the 1 minor. You recall the last time around we had a 6 half diminished, which is the same thing as a minor 6, but now 6 is dominant. So we're going to go from C minor to A7, and now in this case 2 is also dominant, to D7, to G7, and in some cases I'm using some alteration, some combination of 5th or 9th raised or lowered, so you're hearing a bit more tension and release, to the 1 minor. Now, before I resolve to the F minor, you'll remember from some of the past passes through, I went from 1 minor to 1 dominant. I'm going to slip in one additional change. I'm going to go from 1 minor to flat 2 dominant to 1 to 4 minor. So in this case, it's going to be C minor, C sharp 7, C7, slipping in a little bit of chromatic harmony, resolving to the 4 minor, to the flat 7 dominant. That's been the case for the last couple of regressions. So F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, just down a whole step. We've done this in the past, I think for segment 3. Back to 5, back to 1, so that would be G7, C minor, 6 dominant, which we did in the last segment. Again, our turnaround here at the end, they're all dominant chords. 6 dominant, 2 dominant, 5, 1, and then we're going to do a repetition of that as our final turnaround. 1 minor, 6 dominant, 2 dominant, 5, 1. So just as we did for the third pass through, I'm going to try to talk through this and play through it at the same time, which is a little daunting, but I'm going to try. And then we're going to do it again. At that point, you'll have a pretty good feeling of what the progression is. So I will play through it a second time on my own without saying anything, and I think you can follow along and see what I'm doing. And then the third time through, we'll do our alternate courses. So if you would, please, Eric. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. C minor, A7, D7, G7, C sharp 7, C, F minor, B flat 7, A flat, G, A7, D7, all dominant, G, C minor, turn around, A7, D7, G, C minor, A7, D7, G, C minor, C sharp 7, C, C7, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G, A7, D7, G7, C minor, turn around, A7, D7, G, C minor, A7, D7, G, C minor, C sharp 7, C7, resolving to the F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G, A7, D7, G7, A7, D7, G, A7, turning around, coming around to the F minor, B flat 7, A flat, G, A7, D7, G7, C minor, A7, D7, G, A7, D7, G, C sharp, C, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G, A7, D7, G7, C minor, A7, D7, G, C minor, A7, D7, G, C minor, C sharp 7, C7, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G, A7, D7, G7, C minor, A7, D7, G. That's a mouthful of chords, isn't it? Now bear in mind you can also slow this down or create your own loop where everything is maybe moving this fast. If you need to slow things down to hear them, it's perfectly fine. But I would venture that if you go through this progression enough times, you're going to see that it's pretty logical. It's mostly fourths and chromatic movement, just to set up little resolutions, additional resolutions, harmony in the cracks. And by the way, we're not just working on a minor blues because these turnarounds surface in a million other tunes as well. So we're just working on your knowledge of the harmony in a general sense too. So now I'm going to take a pass through this, and you can follow along, but I'm not going to say anything. So 6 courses of this progression, playing, no chatting. Eric, if you would, please. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, could you follow the progression? Again, mostly 2 beats, mostly dominant chords, lots of fourths and some occasional chromatic movement. Now let's try it together. So I'll walk you through the progression. Don't be intimidated, and if you can't catch all of it, just catch what you can. Again, don't worry about making a great solo initially. My hope in terms of your first passes through this, if it's an unfamiliar progression or if it feels too dense, try to grab some portion of an arpeggio of every one of those changes as an exercise. And if you can't do it at this tempo, slow it down. Just grab what you can. If you please, Eric. 1, 2. I'm up first. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. C sharp 7, C, F minor, B flat 7, A flat, G, C minor, A7, D7, G, 7, C minor, A7, D7, G, now you, C minor, A7, D7, G7, C minor, C sharp 7, C7, setting up the resolution to the 4 minor, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G7, C minor, A7, here comes our first dominant turnaround, D7, G7, quick turnaround, C minor, A7, D7, G, now me. C sharp 7, C, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G, C minor, A7, D7, G7, C minor, A7, D7, G. Now use C minor, A7, A flat 7, G7, C minor, C sharp 7, C7, starting with the resolution of the 4 minor, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G7, C minor. Little A7 to set up our first turnaround, D7, G7, quick turnaround, C minor, A7, D7, G, now me, C minor, A7, D7, G, C minor, C sharp 7, C, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G, A7, D7, G7, turnaround, C minor, A7, D7, G, now you, C minor, A7, A flat 7, G7, C minor, C sharp 7, C7, F minor, B flat 7, A flat 7, G7, C minor. Little A7 to set up our turnaround, D7, G7, C minor, A7, D7, G7. Lots of chords, right? Is it playable? Most definitely. And I think we can start with just the basic arpeggios of everything there because of the fact that there's so much harmony. But if you want to work in some of the alterations, you might even just slip in one altered tone. I don't think you're going to necessarily need a very complex rendering of every one of those chords because the harmony itself and all the movement is what makes that progression interesting, not necessarily lots of complications or embellishments over each individual change.